Alrighty, it's 7 o'clock on Monday, the 28th of August, 2017. Jamaica Selectboard meeting comes to order. First order of business is to ask if there are any late additions to the agenda.
I would just like to talk about update at the transfer station.
Update the transfer station. Okay.
Also, I spoke to the water engineers and just like to update that.
Okay. Alrighty then. So, second order of business, approve the minutes of the August 14th Select Board meeting. They were all sent out to everybody. I hope you all have a copy of them. Any changes, corrections, deletions, expansions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept them as written.
I make that motion.
Second. I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the minutes of August 14th are accepted as written.
Do we have to vote?
Who is the vote? Oh, yeah, vote. Okay, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Just checking. They now pass. Here. Good, 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 good. I'm just looking at a long agenda, so I'm kind of clicking along here. Item number 3, approve the time sheets for town offices, listers, highway, and transfer stations. And number 4, we'll sign the select board orders. We'll do that after the meeting, so you don't.
Do we have to do the 10th of July?
The 10th of July, what?
Those were the ones that were redone by hand.
And that's here.
I think you approved them,
We
you
approved
made
them.
all the corrections,
Right.
and I did those corrections on that, and you
Okay.
approved them with those corrections,
Okay.
Pending.
Gotcha.
right?
Number 5. We have a report from the Muzzy Fund Committee. I don't know if you guys have copies, but I made copies in case you didn't. Anyone else?
Thank you.
The copy I'm handing you redacted the personal information, but the details necessary to make the decision are there. And it reads, from the Jamaica Vermont Muzzy Fund Review Committee, Jamaica Vermont Muzzy Fund Committee recommended for the request of funds. The committee met on August 24th, 2017 at 10 a.m. at the town office to review request for funds. The committee met with the individual and reviewed his request. After answering a number of questions which are in the committee's minutes of the meeting, the committee went into an executive session to discuss the request. After coming out of the executive session, the committee voted 2 yes and 1 no to approve his request for a one-time payment of $1,470. So that was the recommendation from the committee. I would accept a motion.
We follow the Jamaica Vermont Muzzy's Fund Review Committee's recommendation.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of accepting?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Since Joel was at the meeting, I think he should excuse himself from voting on this.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I didn't make any comment, I just listened.
Her point is valid since you're a voting member of the board. Having said that, if you choose to follow that portion of your conscience, to not recuse yourself on this, nothing we can do. But I would think that would be something you would have considered. But
Absolutely not.
all those in favor of accepting this, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We'll instruct the treasurer to take action on this tomorrow morning. Next one. Number 6, discuss waiving the, if you want to give me these things,
Were those sent out to us?
no, they weren't. We had them available, but we had to come get them. Didn't put them in.
I didn't
You should take these back, though.
Yeah, I'll just hang on to them. We're trying to protect
The individual.
the individual's privacy as much as possible, so that we're not gonna just toss them out, I'll get rid of them, destroy them. Okay, now, next item is number 6. As you may recall, Veda made a proposal. She said she had someone who was interested in joining the planning committee, and we have received a letter from Rebecca Ohm, who's in attendance, who has outlined a pretty good background and has demonstrated an interest in joining the planning committee. Veda has demonstrated an interest in her joining the planning committee. We got a 14-day or 15-day waiting period that ends like tomorrow, so I'd entertain a motion that we vacate the last day and just do it now.
So moved.
Sounds good.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Is there anyone else interested?
I have heard of no one else.
We've had no other applications, not that we wouldn't make it if we had.
Do we need to vote on vacating the one day, or can we just appoint her?
I don't know, I'm just doing it just in case it have to. It's one of those silly little things that this rule says we gotta do 15 days.
Right.
So we're gonna make the decision to not, just to move it forward, because I know you need the help. I know she's interested in helping, and I think you guys have been probably colluding behind closed doors anyhow. Well, partially closed doors. And so I would entertain, we've got a motion, I think the discussion, any further discussion? All in favor of vacating that one day and moving forward, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Now we merely have to appoint.
I move we appoint
Rebecca?
Second.
Rebecca
Ohm.
Ohm to the
Second.
planning.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of appointing Rebecca Ohm to the planning commission for the town of Jamaica, I'll say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none? Thank you for volunteering. And Rebecca, Veda, Rebecca, you two.
I look forward to working with you.
Yeah, I think she told me about your background and how much help you've already been. So that's how I knew you were colluding behind closed doors.
I was volunteering.
Volunteering behind closed doors, that's what it was called. Okay, good.
I have a question on this. I researched this a little bit, and I don't know where the regulation is that we have to wait 15 days. And-
It's a policy for, my understanding.
It is, you have to wait 15
Town
days.
policy.
It's in the VLTC rules.
Yeah, when we
I
post it.
spoke to John Bennett.
I'm
from
sorry, but it's in the
Rachel.
rules. It's for
I
select
spoke-
board and anything else.
I spoke to John Bennett, and he said it's not a rule. I'm just mentioning that.
Well, John Bennett works for the Wyndham Regional Committee, and the VLCT are the attorneys that draw up an awful lot of our recommendations, so we
I
tend
would like to know where the regulations are for the town in general.
I'll find you that.
Okay, we'll be glad to do that for you. Moving on. Number 7. We have, for the last, I don't know, good number of weeks, been considering a net metering agreement proposal that was presented to us by Green Lantern Corporation, Green Lantern, can't remember their official name, they're awful. At any rate, we had a presentation here a number of weeks ago. And some of the concerns we had was that the legal paperwork was a little confusing to a number of us. Green Lantern Development LLC is who it is. And so we submitted it to our attorney, Paul Gillies, who then shared it with, what's his first name? Jerry, isn't it? Yeah, Jerry. Jerry Tarrant, who is his partner, and he's the gentleman who has the expertise in these kinds of things. And so we got the report back. I sent it to everybody else on email if you've had a chance to review it. And so we need to make a decision because we've been sort of holding this thing up for a long time. And we owe it to the people that are in Green Lantern to give them a decision. And we owe it to us to stop talking about it over and over again. So, have you all had an opportunity to review Jerry Tarrant's paperwork, his presentation? Anybody have any questions about that? So, I would entertain a motion Yes, I have two hands up, yours went first.
That's okay.
It's quick, they were very, very quick.
Well, I asked him a question earlier, he was trying to answer it, but unfortunately the meeting started, so I would like
Oh,
to
sure.
ask that question publicly. But Ralph, I don't know if you had.
Sure, I just want to identify myself. Ralph Mime of Brattleboro, and I'm the person from Green Lantern who submitted that proposal to Jamaica. And I wondered if I could just say a couple things on behalf of our proposal and add a couple of updates as well. Is that possible?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Is that addressing the Terrence thing? Is there something new that's come up since you talked?
Well, there are just a couple of new developments about what we're proposing in general. I would be very happy to respond to any points that Mr. Tarrant has also decided to point out in the agreement itself, but could I just make a couple of general comments?
Sure.
Okay. Just generally, I wanted to say that it's a very standard solar services agreement. We have projects now around the state in about, at this point, more than 50 towns. And in the majority of those towns, either the town, a school district, or a supervisory union, or a waste district, or something like that, is the off-taker. So what you're looking at has been used multiple times, even though some attorneys have seen that particular language a lot more often than others. So it's a very well-established and we think robust solar services agreement for municipal net metering. Another thing I just want to quickly mention is that when I first came to you, it was in connection with a little bit of extra capacity we had on an array in Springfield, 490 Fairbanks. And we were looking for a town or an elementary school or something like that to come in and take up that slack. In the meantime, that bit of available capacity was taken by Union Street School in Springfield, so it's no longer available. But that's not a problem at all for what we're talking about, because we have another project in Guilford that's already permitted. It's a community solar array, and for example, a town like Jamaica could be what we call the anchor off-taker of that array in Guilford, where most of the array would actually be sold to households and businesses and so forth. Another one coming up behind it, where we'll be applying for permits soon, is in Newfane on the landfill, the Browns Road landfill. So those are examples of replacement solutions to the Springfield opportunity, which is no longer there. And then I just want to speak quickly to what Lou mentioned. So Lou asked, what if somebody signs up for more credits than they can use on their bills? Is that more or less it?
Correct. Let's say, for example, the town garage uses a lot less electricity than the building than we anticipated, and therefore we may have committed to a higher number of kilowatt hours.
So one of the things we do is, first of all, we size the net metering agreement at about 80 to 90% of the total electrical bill per year of that, we say off-taker or net metering customer. So we build in a little bit of a buffer there to try to make sure that that doesn't happen. If it does happen, then it's a Springfield situation, and we get to work trying to find somebody else that can jump in and utilize those credits, because there's no reason for you to pay for credits you can't use.
Okay.
So that's it.
Are we protected that will happen?
Yes, I mean one of them is the buffer, where we would set it at 80 to 90% of your total bill. That's usually pretty reliable. We've seen in most towns electrical consumption actually increasing rather than decreasing these days, even though they're getting more efficient. They're also using heat pumps and things like that more. And then, like I said, we would also take on the challenge of trying to find a replacement so that everybody's happy.
Okay, but you say trying to.
We would do it. We would absolutely do it. Yeah.
Thank you. Ralph, when do these becoming online? Are they like a year away, a year and a half away?
Guilford is sooner because we are actively selling panels right now. And in fact, I'm going to leave with you, for whoever would like it, just a little packet with information about that community solar opportunity. We're hoping that by the end of this year, we'll have sold out the panels and be able to start construction. So
Is it pretty much the same contract, 12.5%? savings over what Green Mountain Power credits you, or is it a whole different billing scheme?
Well, that's a very, very good question. Like Springfield, like 490 Fairbanks, what we call the Marjorie Evans Array in Guilford is grandfathered in under the earlier, more attractive incentives because we got all the applications in before the end of 2016. So yes, we can offer 12.5% and a higher net metering credit value. Newfane is a 2017 project, so it would be a little skinnier.
Paul asked me to kind of speak a little bit about this because of my familiarity with the solar project at the district. So if you don't mind, I'll spend just a few minutes giving you basically, from the way I see this, it's a risk-reward situation. The district proposal that was given a year or so ago had a higher risk, and a higher reward. This particular project has a relatively low risk, almost no risk at all, except for being oversubscribed, which it appears that that's somewhat mitigated, but it's pretty low reward compared to what the district proposal was. So I just wanted to let you know that I didn't see anything that gave me any red lights on this project. But I just wanted to let you know that it's a relatively rather low reward compared to what the district had. Although what he is saying is true. The net metering rules have changed and the rewards have gone down even more. So even though this is a relatively low reward compared to the district proposal, it's probably a higher reward than anything that's going to come down the pike. The only thing I could caution you on is I have no idea what else might be coming down the pike in the future. We know that anaerobic digestion is a big thing with the state. I don't know whether there are going to be any net metering projects revolving around anaerobic digestion. So that's the only thing I would caution you on, is there might be something that might come down better that is not in the solar world, but maybe in some other renewable energy world.
Are we precluded from taking advantage of any other situation because we signed up this situation?
Yes, your meter can only be allocated to one project. So if we have 4 meters in town, it can only be allocated to one. Each one of those meters can be allocated to only one project. So if we've allocated all 4 of them to this project, then we can't allocate any more meters unless we have a new building.
A new building.
Right, with a new meter.
What is the cause to have brought down the earlier
Right.
amounts
Green Mountain
of
Power.
rewards and 2017?
Right. Green Mountain Power has met their requirement for the amount of net metering in solar that they are required to have, or that they volunteered to have. And so therefore they've reduced their incentives. Would you agree with that, Ralph?
Well, the state has actually reduced the incentives.
State,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. I think Green Mountain Power at 35%, was it 35%? Or was it 15%?
Which,
What they were required to provide with solar.
well, it was 15%, but under the new regs, there's no cap.
Right.
But the incentives are so much less attractive that it's effectively
They met their 15%.
it's a break.
Right, the state.
Because the green power doesn't need as many towns going into it because they've got their amount.
Right.
That's what you're telling me, right?
Right. The 15% that they were required or volunteered to do has been met. The state, has reduced the incentives.
Isn't the goal to reduce the use of fossil fuel altogether? So what is this percentage that we can't exceed?
The net metering regulation, when it first came out in, I want to say 2010, set the utilities, particularly Green Mountain Power, because they're the lion's share, agreed to net metering. I mean, there was some negotiation, but they said, let's keep it capped. Let's keep the maximum amount of net metering capacity, which all of these private individuals and developers and so forth are going to hook up to the grid, to a maximum of 4% of peak demand, just so that it doesn't suddenly surge into something that's more than the grid is designed to handle. So that happened. That 4% was reached pretty quickly. at a very attractive incentive level. The incentives were turned down a little bit, and I want to say 2014, I think, the cap was raised from 4% to 15%, and the growth was just explosive, even though the incentives were less attractive. And all of the utilities, Green Mountain Power, Washington Electric, VEC, just were amazed at how quickly net metering caught on with all of this private capital hooking up distributed generation to the grid. There's a little bit of a tug of war there because, for Green Mountain Power, to some extent it replaces them with another source of electric supply. So it's kind of like moving customers away from them. At least that's one way to look at it. There are other advantages for them to have this. But I think there's also a consensus in the legislature and the Department of Public Service that distributed generation in general, where you're using local renewable resources very close to where the electricity is actually being consumed, is a good thing. And so we're at a point now where of the state's electricity supply, somewhere between 15 and 20% is coming from solar. And with the reduced incentives, there's still a lot of opportunity for growth. So it's going to continue to sort of gradually move up, as the state figures out the whole puzzle and figures out how to get renewable energy into building heating and transportation and the rest of the electric supply. And it's coming from out of state too, from wind farms and hydro and so forth.
Yeah, what about the hydro? Because I am aware that there is a signing with Canada around the hydroelectric.
Well, I'm not an expert. I think about 30% of the total electric supply comes from hydro outside
But
of state.
are they trying to increase that amount?
I think they're just sort of
So
leaving it where it is.
Is this happening between solar and hydro?
I don't think that it's really worked that way.
Okay.
Because the hydro that we consume is pretty large scale, and it's generally Hydro-Quebec. And it's done through big contracts that the utilities enter into, big long-term contracts with Hydro-Quebec, whereas we're distributed generation, we're much more small and local.
Well, thank you. Any other questions?
Why did we originally, refresh my memory, back out of the Brattleboro deal?
It was mostly a legal issue. One of the things that is rather unsettled in this business is what happens when things go to court, litigation. And because there's been very little of that up to now. And Jerry Tarrant was very adamant about certain things that the contract was going to have as far as protections to the town for things that, in my opinion, really weren't things that he should have been aware of or concerned about. But he was concerned because of the fact that there is no litigation on these particular points yet. So the contract that was presented to the town was a take it or leave it contract, and basically Jerry said leave it because he was concerned about something, about liability should something happen on the field, that not only the project would get sued, but potentially the off-takers might get sued, which is a very remote possibility, but something that was of concern to him. So therefore, because of that, we decided we had to drop the deal because it was a take it or leave it contract.
What would be an example of something on the field that might happen?
It would be human cause as opposed to natural cause, so it wouldn't be lightning, but let's say that there was a human error that caused an inverter to blow up and hurt somebody. He was concerned that not only would the developer be sued, but the off-takers would be sued.
Deep pockets, basically.
And he wanted to rewrite that part of the contract. The district wasn't, or the developer wasn't willing to do that.
And just speaking just to that point, let me interrupt just for a second. One of the paragraphs that Jerry Tarrant wrote to us on that topic, it says, please note the limitation of liability under section 17. The town agrees to waive any claim or right against the system owner for indirect, incidental, consequential, or punitive damages, except as to death, injury, and intentional wrongdoing of third-party claims. No officer, member, manager, employee, or owner of the system owner may be held liable if the system fails to generate any electricity or fails to maintain a license or permits, or any other error or omission by the system owner. So importantly, liability of the owner shall not exceed the aggregate amount of limit to the amount. There's this, we're in different boats. This is all legalese. But I think he's speaking to that issue about the liability again, and how it applies to the municipality versus the systems owner. And he still has a concern that's different, a little bit, but the same concept of the liability issue. Any other?
I do have a question. When is the decision have to be made for the Guilford project?
There's no deadline, it's first come, first served, and we're looking at other potential off-takers as well as retail panel purchasers all the time.
Okay, so you're going to send us a copy of that proposal?
Well, the array itself is described in here, as a retail opportunity. But the solar services agreement that we're talking about here would apply just as easily to that.
Okay, it would, so this contract would apply to that?
Absolutely.
To that deal, okay.
Getting back to a question that Joel asked in Mr. Terrence's letter to us. In the last paragraph on page 2, it says, there is an exclusivity provision. This is what you're talking about. If the allocation does not meet the town's entire energy needs, the town cannot sign another net metering agreement without another company regarding any customer meter listed in Exhibit C. Section 2 it doesn't allow the town to remove a customer meter from the utility service without replacing it with a similar tariff meter. So we get into that question about what do we do. We're sort of locked into that sort of a contract, regardless of how our needs may go up or down.
Yeah. I think the biggest concern there is for a large company with a meter, let's say CNS Wholesaler says, I'm going to commit. And they have a meter that generates a million kilowatts, but they only commit 10,000 kilowatts to that. Well, then the other 990,000 are no longer available. I think that's really what that's addressing. Does that sound?
Yeah. And a way around what you're talking about would be, let's say 5 or 10 years down the line, the town decides to go all electric with vehicles. And you want some sort of charging station at the town garage or something like that. And that's going to involve a lot of electric use that goes way beyond anything that's available through this array. You just put a different meter on it, and then you're free to make an agreement with anybody. So
I think that as I go through this, I went through and marked all the little spots here, and I don't know, I don't want to read the whole thing, but there's just so many little questions. One of the questions he asked, if a group member signed up for an estimated year 1 output greater than what Jamaica signed up for, what happens if there's a lower than usual generation year? Do the customers suffer equally? Do the larger customers obtain benefits that are unequal to Jamaica? How would we know? Do you have a right to audit your books? What happens if it's an exceptionally high generation? Do the parties reap the benefits equally? Again, would there be some priority given to the larger or the smaller? These are the little kinds of things that lawyers do. And I think that, he took the contract I sent him, and he went over it pretty thoroughly. Took him a while. One of the questions that I've been getting as people talk about this over time is how much we can anticipate a savings versus how much we've already paid in legal fees. And it doesn't sound like we're going to recoup our legal fees right off the bat. And I'm not exactly sure how the next package with the next system, we missed the deadline for the one that we're talking about, so the next one with smaller rewards, we're still a really small town. And we spent an awful lot on legal fees to get to a point where we're still confused. And so the question then is, how much further are we as a town willing to go in anticipation of some unknowns? And it's a tough call. It's a very tough call. It kind of borders on the business of, do we want to look forward and look at what's going to happen, even though the lawyers are looking and says, yeah, but we're not really all that tightly protected? Or are we going to, I hate to use this phrase, somebody use it for me, fall behind the 21st century? I'm not so sure the 21st century is ready for us yet. But at any rate, that's sort of where we are with the information we've gotten.
Lou, what other possibilities are there?
What other possibilities? I don't know of any yet. I do know that the anaerobic digestion is something that is very hot with the state. And I don't know if there's any net metering potential in the anaerobic digestion world. Do you know anything about that, Rob?
Never heard.
Yeah. But they're offering like 20 point something cents per kilowatt hour for anaerobic digesters. And I know the district is looking at putting an anaerobic digester in down there. So I don't,
Does that come to the town or to the utility?
it would, pardon me?
Does that go, that digester, is that an equipment that the town gets or the utility gets?
That would be, the district would own that or work on that facility, work with that facility. It may be privately owned, but we don't know.
Wyndham County, you mean?
Wyndham County, right. The Wyndham Solid Waste District.
Yeah, and since we're a member of that, we would benefit as a member.
But the developer of the solar project there is looking to put an anaerobic digester. He's doing the feasibility study now.
It seems to me like the ground is moving underfoot.
One of my concerns is, as I drive around the state and see all of these solar panels, and I know that a lot of towns are having some difficulty with it and et cetera, that will that become archaic within the next 30 years? And then we'll have, or five, and have all of these different solar farms all over the place. Because things are moving, exactly what you're saying. They're moving so quickly.
How long is this contract? Is it 20 years?
It's 20.
And we're not gonna recoup our legal fees in 20 years?
Well, maybe in 20 years, but certainly not in the next year or so.
Well, I just wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
How much were they?
Oh, Terry told me, I think we're paying, I think Gillis is getting 140 an hour, I don't remember how much Tarrant is getting, but they're pretty good sized fees.
It's over $1,000.
For just this product right here, from Terrence over at
Well,
Grand.
there's some incentive to get involved to get that back.
Yeah,
And what is that regular electricity that's gonna go down in 20 years?
the thing is, we really don't know.
This is like fortune
Well,
telling.
the advantage of this proposal is it doesn't matter what electricity does.
Right.
At least from my understanding, if electricity goes down, Green Mountain Power is still gonna give you that credit, and you're gonna pay 87.5% of that, of whatever Green Mountain Power credits you on that bill. So, there's no risk of going underwater, at least that I can see.
No, that's right. And if I could just address two more risks as well. I mean, it is a complicated document, and I mean, after working with it heavily for 4 years, I still have to go back and check it. A couple of things that I want to just point out is that if for some reason the array stops producing, you don't pay for any credits that aren't generated. So the worst case is that you simply just go back to paying the electric bill you were already paying. That's all. There's no liability, there's no shut off. And then the flip side of that is that because we are borrowing money from BDA and so forth and getting investor money, we have to amortize the investment in the system, so we have every incentive that there is to keep the thing running. So there's really no risk there. The other thing is that a question that does come up is, for off-takers, for net metering customers, we set a monthly payment amount that's levelized across the year. It's the same amount per month for a year, based on the expected production of the array over the course of that year, which we can usually get pretty close to estimating based on latitude and weather and so forth. So the question is, what if the array produces more credits than you're paying for? Well, we bill you. We do an end-of-year true-up. But if the array, if it's a very snowy and dark and foggy year, and for some reason the array doesn't produce as much as you're paying for, then you get money back. So we do a true up at the end of year, looking at actual production compared to what you've been paying for the discounted net metering credits. So that's another risk that's mitigated by a deal that.
What if your company goes bankrupt?
If our company goes bankrupt, there's still an asset sitting out there in the field that is generating value. And, our bank, anybody else who's got a stake in it, is going to make sure that it continues to produce value. We don't plan to go bankrupt. We're based in Waterbury. Our entire business is based on projects we've started in Vermont. We've never done anything outside of Vermont. So we have we're committed, but things happen. So if we did go bankrupt, I think that you wouldn't even notice it as an off-taker or as GMP, because it would just keep running and people would have a very strong interest in keeping it running.
On that topic, one of the things that Mr. Tarn had, in section 15 and 16, it says, confirms that the town cannot assign this agreement without the system owner's prior consent. The system owner can, so that we get in a situation where we need to reassign it. We cannot do that, but you can. Then it says the town, according to the contract, would need to cooperate in any financing or perhaps refinancing of the project. So as members of this little group, we would be contractually obligated to help refinance a potential disaster, financial disaster. But we don't have within the contract the power to reassign our credits or whatever we want to call it. That belongs only to you guys. So you guys can do stuff that we cannot do, yet we're still obligated to help with the potential refinancing or financing of a problem. Granted, there's lots of safeguards, but just as granted, there's not as many safeguards for us as it appears to be for the system owners, according to his writing. And I'm sure that if I read all this stuff somewhere, I would get a headache. So that's why I'm relying on Terrence's thing. And I'm just as sure this is all new. And there's lots of things that haven't been worked out. And I applaud the movement. And I'm just thinking that from the perspective of our attorneys looking at the contracts, we become contractually obligated to things we may not wish to be obligated for in pursuit of something that seems like a really good idea, but hasn't been fully vetted in the court systems, which is his point with you on the first one, and still leaves us sort of open. We have a very small town, we have very little money, we have very little opportunity to recoup any damages that if we get involved with something. And I'm just thinking we don't have a buffer. We don't have a buffer to make those kinds of.
What will this contract cost us over 20 years?
It won't cost you anything.
What are we paying?
You're buying discounted credits, so you're buying a dollar's worth of credits against your electric bill for 87.5 cents. So that's what brings your electric bill down.
And what if we put our own solar system
All the risk is on us.
in? Right.
You'll never get that money back.
Well, why would you want to if you're already
I just want to compare. I didn't say I wanted to.
No, because actually, that's a good question, and some towns have decided to do that. They've raised a bond and they've built their own solar
Right.
project, and they're doing their own net metering. And it can take anywhere from 14 to 17 years to pay back, because as a municipality, you can't take advantage of federal
Right.
tax credits. So if a town wants to do that, some have done it, but I think that just from a financial standpoint for the taxpayers, net metering offers a quicker way to simply start benefiting from net metering.
I think that's a good description.
I think that our chair he's not speaking for me. Are you speaking for the whole board?
No, I'm just reading what
Okay,
Attorney Tarn said. Oh, okay, I apologize.
well, no, the way I'm interpreting it is, I have a different opinion than.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to read what he wrote.
No,
I shared it with everybody, we all had a chance to look at it.
What is your opinion?
I think it sounds pretty good. Anything could happen, but I think it would be some savings over a 20-year period. But more than just staying with electricity.
Well, I think we've had a pretty good discussion. We've had different opinions. Would someone care to make a motion?
I don't think, do we have to act now?
Well, we've been
First come,
stringing
first
these
served.
guys out for months. We've already missed the vote on the first one. We don't have to. this
No, it's
is,
just a question.
yeah, we have this from Jerry Tarrant. And I've been promising him through emails multiple times that we'd at least bring it to the board with what Mr. Tarrant gave us, and we have an opportunity to discuss it. There is no, unless he has a clock that I'm not aware of, there's no clock ticking, except that we've been discussing this for so long, and I frankly felt guilty to stringing you on. I wanted my answer to that.
Well,
Having said that, the discussion is important.
In some sense, there is a clock ticking. I mean, if we've already lost Springfield and.
Which was a better deal?
Yeah, much better.
Same deal.
Same deal,
Much
same
better
deal,
deal.
yeah.
Same deal.
But this is our last one.
Okay, for,
So there is a clock.
And all the, what do you call them for the Brattleboro project, Warsaw?
Yes,
That was all
Brattleboro
committed.
project is all sold out.
Right, no, just so people did commit to that.
well, let's test it. I make a motion that we adopt this plan.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? Anybody we haven't heard from yet?
The only thing I would like to do is to make it, I do want to see Schedule C before you commit to anything, which is the meters. I'd like to see the meters and what's on those meters. For example, when I looked at those numbers, they looked a little bit high to me based on what I recall, our meters being, and I wanted to be sure that Terry and, or Pat didn't include the street lighting. Street lighting is not as eligible for participation. So I do want to take one good look at those meters. So if you want to make that motion contingent upon, the meters looking like it's what we think it's going to be.
Okay, I would accept an amendment on that.
All in favor of an amendment to add, well, technically speaking, the audience. Would anybody from the board like to make that amendment?
I will, whatever he said.
Do you have anything that could be back to us?
Judy amends the motion to make the agreement contingent upon seeing Schedule C.
I'll second.
I'll make it sound
I'll
prettier.
second that amendment.
And then you can decide, I suppose what would happen then is if it looked like we weren't going to get the savings we thought because we don't have as many kilowatt hours as we thought, then you may want to rescind this.
Yeah, we may want to go back to the drawing board.
Does it make sense then to even vote on this at this stage, or should we just wait ahead? Since the clock is not ticking because it hasn't been built yet, we have more time to get your information and then take a look at this thing on a different platform. We're talking specifics about something you have and you have the information. Does that not make more sense than to vote on it right now with all these contingencies floating around?
And we have to.
We have to vote.
We have to vote, I'm just throwing that out. So,
My concern is, because I know we're in discussion, my concern is that this is like going to the store and this is for sale, but you better hurry up because this is the last one. It feels like that to me. And so, I don't know, because it may in fact be the last one for a while. So I'm really
and to that topic,
betwixt and between.
if it's the last one of something we need versus the last one of something we'd like to have, I think we act differently. Yeah, I'd like to have it, it sounds like a good idea, but does it affect our day-to-day production of services to the town sufficient enough for the risk of taking the last one? That's where I'm balancing these things out. So, discussion. All in favor of the discussion amendment, which was to amend the motion to include delaying the decision until Schedule C has been reviewed and is satisfactory? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion passes. The motion amendment passes. Now for the motion. All in favor, if I could rephrase that, all in favor of Joel's motion to accept the contract with the provision that we have Lou review Schedule C before we make a final decision.
Well, are you in,
Well, my concern is that Schedule C is part of the contract. If you are looking at a contract without Schedule C, you're looking at an incomplete contract. So that's my concern.
So then we want to review Schedule C of the full contract.
Right.
so we have to have some kind of guideline that you will review it and,
Well, then I'll bring it back to you and let you know what the full savings is going to be, so you'll know.
okay.
Because he's given you an estimated savings, and I'd like to be a little bit more exact on those savings than his estimate, because I think they're based on numbers that were a little bit high.
So, question, if we vote yes, and it comes back that it is high, where does our vote yes go? We're still in it?
Yeah.
Well, where does the definition of high? At what point is high or too high?
That's my question.
What we're about to do, should we vote this forward, is to open up a whole other can of worms. I'm, as part of the discussion from Paul, not from the chair, I'd like to put this thing on hold until we get all the information. But that would be my vote. But continue the discussion.
What were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say we could defeat this motion and then make a motion to have Lou evaluate Schedule C with a motion to pass or reject the contract at the next select board meeting based on the evaluation of Schedule C.
So if we defeat this, we will then reconsider what you just said as a possible motion.
Yeah.
Right,
And we could also, not even need a motion, we could have him come back and report back to us.
right.
So if we defeat this motion right now, we buy time and we can move forward.
How about if you table the motion?
Well, table is, yeah.
You can table a motion.
That's a gray area. Usually when you table a motion, you kill it.
It's pretty dead.
Usually it comes back at the next meeting.
Well, I was reading up on that, apparently not.
You
Okay.
can come back.
And
We
it's
have
already
we have to
been
start it
amended.
again.
VLCT talks about.
And it's already been amended to say something about Schedule C.
See,
C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that part's been amended, now the motion has yet to pass. If we pass it, then we can get into that. If we defeat it right now, at this point, we pick it up again when we have time and information. So,
When you say too high, the estimated savings are too high, that
or too low.
Adjournment's telling us?
I don't remember what your estimated savings was for the year. Do you remember what that was?
Well, let me just say this, the estimated savings were just over $1,000. And Schedule C just basically lists the account numbers and the meter numbers that are gonna be part of the net metering group. You know, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, however many meters you wanna define as part of the group under that agreement. So Schedule C is just a list of accounts and meter numbers.
Right, but it would also include the kilowatt hours on each meter, the estimated annual kilowatt hours on those meters.
Yeah, you can have that there, but I mean, I actually have that in a spreadsheet that I based the actual calculation on, which I'm very happy to share with you. The point
See,
I just
I
wanted,
like to, see, what I have the same spreadsheet that was developed for the project in Brattleboro. I'd like to compare those two spreadsheets to see that we're talking about the same number of kilowatt hours.
sure,
So if you wouldn't mind,
I can send it to
you
you, sure,
can send it to me.
absolutely. The point I just wanted to quickly make is that at the end of the day, I think what we're talking about here is really a range of, you know, depending on whether or not the streetlights were included and how big the usage is for those streetlights, we're just talking about a range of savings, you know, annual savings from maybe $700 or $800 to $1,100 per year.
Per year.
You know, so that's what this is all gonna end up with. You know, there's no other sort of risk or surprise involved. It's really just
And
what the number is.
these meters are being used to run town facilities, not private facilities.
Town facilities.
Or you could withdraw your motion and pick this up.
I would withdraw it, but I don't think it's legal. So we have to vote on it.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of accepting the contract as it reads now with the provision that Lou gets an opportunity to review Schedule C of the contract, say aye.
Aye.
All in favor, say, All in favor? All against accepting the contract, in this capacity, say nay.
Nay.
Nay? 2 and 2. 3. Okay, so we will not pass it tonight. We will live another day, so you and I should keep remembering each other's emails. And we'll get a chance to get the information to Lou, review it all.
Can we make this an official motion that Lou review it and submit it?
By
So
next,
that we have a motion on the floor next, at
yes,
the next select board.
I would like that.
Well, we can't make a motion for next week, but we can certainly make a motion that he could make, if he's willing to,
Why don't we
give
just,
information.
he's nice enough to offer to do it, says he will.
I just want it to be on the agenda for the next meeting.
Clearly, it would be on the agenda.
If
for
he
next
has
week.
the information.
That's all.
Yeah, I'm sure we get it. I'm sure you can get it.
As soon as you let me know you've got it, you will be on the agenda for next week.
Would
I'll
you,
pencil you in anyway.
Would you email, I can just write it.
I've got your email address.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah.
Then I've got it too. We've got it back and forth. All right, thank you very much. Well,
Thank you.
that was good information. Thank you. We should move on though, because it's getting late. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot for your time. I'm just gonna leave that with you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, thanks. Something quick. The next item is from Lou. Review and consider a second errors and omissions report from the listers. Mr. Brusso.
If you all recall my discussion at the last meeting, as you know, tax bills have gone out, and whenever taxpayers see something that they see is a little bit incorrect, they let us know, and 3 people have let us know. So that's the purpose of this errors and omission. The first one is a property sort of opposite of what I told you the last time. If you recall, the last time we were looking at properties that were active, that were made inactive. In this case, it was an opposite situation. Cynthia Rawson had 2 properties, one of which was inactive. That inactive parcel was sold to Peter Andrus and became an active parcel, but her number of acres was not decremented correctly, so therefore we were actually assessing her for more acreage than she now owned. So that's the purpose of this first one, is to reduce the number of acres by 0.9 acres. The second one was very similar to the last one. In this case, we had 2 parcels that, or 1 parcel that was assessed 2 less. In fact, this is a situation where he came to us and told us that we were taxing him too little, but he wanted to have it accurate. So you'll see his revised assessment went up, and he'll actually pay a few more dollars in taxes, but his tax bill will be accurate. That's kind of an unusual situation, but
Yes.
the third one is a mistake that the listers made. This particular person gave us a grievance notice. It got put underneath a pile of papers and did not get acted on during the grievance process. So we're acting on it as part of the errors and omissions, because it was indeed an error by the listers. So that's the third one.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the errors and omissions report from the listers.
Have a second? Have a second? Any further discussion? Thank you, sir. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So accepted. Thank you very much. And the next item, we had a question that we put to our attorney, Paul Gillies. It was a question of access and privilege and a number of different things concerning, in general, how we're managing communications between the select board and our attorney. And so we got a response from the town attorney, and I again submitted it to everybody. Does anybody wish to speak to this first?
Yeah, I'll speak to it.
Okay.
Okay, so, I read the response. I completely agree with the town council's recommendations for a policy regarding communications and correspondence among select board members. I appreciate your thoughtfulness and consideration. So, the following I would propose as a motion regarding memos and other correspondence by and between select board members. That all town or select board related correspondence in any format, electric, print, or voice, with town council, originating with any select board member, be copied and shared with all other select board members. Any release to the public of privileged material so shared must be voted on by the entire board.
That's a motion?
That's a motion.
Can you
Well,
give me
wait.
that after
You
the
said that
meeting
you-
so that I can
You're
put it in?
proposing that a motion?
I'm proposing that as a motion. Let me read it again?
I could probably give her a copy.
Yeah, if
I
you want
could
to
just
just
give
give
you
me
this piece of paper.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you. I got some of it,
Okay.
but most some.
Has everyone else had a chance to read the remarks from Ms. Gibbons?
I'm not clear
Point of
about,
order, you have a
There's
motion.
no second on that.
you're right. So,
That's true. There was no second on this. I was
Second.
surprised at the speed with which we made the motion without discussing it.
I'll
So,
second it so we can talk.
Well, we can talk about it.
you made the second?
Yes.
So we have a second? Okay. Now, have we all had a chance to review these things? Okay. You had a question?
Yeah, my question on what you were putting there at the very end. If we know, each one of us know what the conversation is, however, in whatever form it is between the chair and our town council, does that become public?
That's not what my motion says.
Okay, that was,
Anything that would become public would be subject to a vote by the entire board.
okay, we would have to make it public.
Right.
Well, yes and no. If you take a good look at the rules with the open meeting law about communications between select board members, I'm afraid, I read it that would be public.
Right, that's what it sounds like.
If you read the rules about communication.
Some of it, we voted on it.
The intention of this is that whoever has contact with the attorney, which in this case is the chair only, that the rest of the board understand what the chair is saying to the attorney, as well as the information that the attorney provides back to us.
So you're saying that if Paul gets in touch with the attorney, say by email, you want him to copy all of us as he is talking back
I
and
want
forth?
that
I
information.
think that would constitute a meeting, I'm not sure.
As I read,
Well, this is kind of-
Right.
This is kind of what he's saying in the last paragraph of his review.
the paragraph is this.
A better policy.
Are you reading this?
I'm reading this, I copied this out of the email.
Okay, I have. Again, I'll read along with you and tell me what it is.
A better policy might address circulation of memos and other correspondence among all members of the board, with a caveat that release of privileged material would need to be voted by the board. The privilege does not belong to any one member of the board, and release of that information without a formal vote would be improper and unwise.
Can you read the first two lines as well?
The first two lines here I can live with. You want the whole?
Yeah, the whole thing, the part where he says, if you like, I read it, or you can read it, which you prefer.
Go ahead, read it.
This is the paragraph after discussing all the problems with the proposal. And then he says, I can live with your proposed policy. I don't know that it's in the best interest of the town to adopt it, however.
Correct.
Jamaica would be the first town to adopt such a policy, and those with reasons to benefit from knowing the town's strategies, defenses, strengths and weaknesses in litigation would celebrate it.
Correct.
So he's opening the paragraph saying,
But then,
He says a better.
But then he says a better policy, which I agree with. This is, in other words, I'm not saying anything opposite to what he says in the first part of the paragraph. What I'm saying is what he says, a better policy might address circulation of memos and other correspondence among all members of the board, with a caveat that the release of privileged material would need to be voted by the board. The privilege, meaning the privilege of corresponding with the attorney, does not belong to any one member of the board. In other words, the town attorney is not the attorney for the chair, the town attorney is the attorney for the board. So that the whole board has a right to know about the communications that the chair makes to the town attorney, as well as the information which the town attorney provides back to the select board.
I mean, usually when the chair contacts the attorney, we say something comes up at a meeting, and we'll say, okay, we don't have the answer for that. We need to contact the attorney, the chair will contact the attorney regarding this issue, whatever it may be. And then we'll come back with the answer from the attorney,
Right,
which is basically saying the same
that's
thing.
correct.
And that's what
correct.
happens.
That's not what always happens. And it
It
hasn't
has
happened.
always happened.
It has not always happened that way, Lexi.
I'm not gonna
It
sit
is
and argue
not.
with you,
It
you
is
can
not.
do your thing.
Part of the question that's being discussed with you guys is perhaps we're leaving a piece out of this. I just spent the last week and a half, with multiple conversations with with Mr. Gillies,
Right.
email conversations, around the court case. I don't think I want to go into the names of it, but this battle has been going on with this particular property cases now for months.
Right.
Some of you may recall, we went out and walked the line.
Yes.
Well, that's still going over.
Right.
So I must have had half a dozen communications back and forth with him.
Right.
They're just setting things up.
Right.
Do you expect me to let everybody know? Do you all want these kinds of things?
I do,
For what purpose?
so I know.
Okay. Does that include your communication? Because I know you wrote him and didn't tell anybody about it.
But that became obvious, and I already
After
discussed
the fact.
that at the last meeting.
After the
This is
fact.
not a matter of getting even.
Okay,
That was
good.
a mistake I made that you called me on.
I'm just, I gotta tell you, I think.
Paul?
Oh, yeah, good.
I got a point here. If you go to litigation, somebody sues the town, your emails become discoverable. The question is, are your emails to your attorney discoverable? And that I don't know the answer to. But if you pass information back and forth amongst yourselves, that is discoverable. So anything that you want to keep out of a litigation process, you do not want to pass back and forth via email.
Part of the issue becomes not just that information, everything goes into a fishing expedition for the attorney for the other side. All of your emails, not just the ones that are labeled town.
My point is, and I don't care how it's worded as long as it accomplishes this, is that the rest of the board shares in the attorney-client privilege with the chair. Even though the chair is authorized to make those contacts, the attorney-client privilege extends to the entire select board.
No, that's very clear, and he wrote that.
Well, I think we could ask the chair to look at emails if we wanted to, but I certainly don't want to be hammered with all the correspondence to my personal email, or even an email set up.
It shouldn't be a personal email.
Even an email set up for me as a select board member. I don't think I need, if I wanted to ask the chair, well, what exactly did you guys say? I would hope he would show it.
Give you the answer.
Always have, yeah.
No, I mean, if I,
Yeah, I think that we do have a right to know what.
well, I think we could ask.
Yeah. It probably would be better in conversation rather than putting it in email, but I
As
still
long
think that we have a right to know what is being forwarded back and forth between the chair and the attorney. Because sometimes, and often it's not because it's on purpose, but it just happens. We come from our own perceptions of what's going on and our own understandings. And what happens is if only one person is making the contact back and forth, those perceptions can be given that might be slanted. And maybe that's not what the rest of the board or another member of the board is really saying. And that's why I think it is important that what he is saying here is that we all have privilege and not just one. And it is because of what I was talking about is perception and the slant.
That's my very point, thank you.
I'm trying to find the specific.
I would like to
limits.
find an answer to make sure it wasn't something that
This,
would, you know, constitute a meeting. Like if there's three of us in a room, if three of us are in the other room, one of us has to leave because officially it can't, you know,
Right.
it's not,
But it can be one-on-one.
right, it can be one-on-one, two, if there's more than two, it's illegal.
Then how would we vote on the release of privileged material? How would we do that?
Well, the material that we felt had to belong to the town, we would bring up at a meeting and make it public to the town. And that would be by consent of the entire select board.
Right.
which would there, by necessity, what you just said, mean I don't communicate until we have a meeting every 2 weeks.
Right.
And that makes it tad cumbersome to run town business.
Well, I researched this with VLCT and we can research it further and we are having meetings with the open meeting law. And VLCT agrees with me on this issue that attorney-client privilege is not for one person with the attorney, it's the entire select board. And the convenience and lack of cost to us of having one person speak to the attorney does not obviate the fact that the way it's presented to the attorney is just as important as the way it's received from the attorney.
The last thing you asked me to send to the attorney, I sent to him verbatim,
And that was perfect,
exactly what you said.
and that was perfect.
So have you had a problem with how we've been doing this?
Not on that issue.
So what it was we were trying to fix?
We're trying to fix something that happened in the past.
I don't know, we can relive the past. What we're asking to do with this.
Well, I'm not
with this-
trying to relive the past, I'm
Okay.
trying to make this better for the
The
future.
motion that is on the table, please read again.
He's got it. Sorry.
Sure. Good exercise. That all town or select board related correspondence in any format, electronic, print, or voice with town council originating with any select board member be copied or shared with all other select board members. So that gives you a lot of leeway, copied or shared with all other select board members, as at their desire. Any release to the public of privileged information so shared must be voted on by the entire board.
You haven't defined privileged information in there. What would you like to do?
Privileged information is the private information that when you ask a question of the council, that becomes privileged information. So we can share it amongst ourselves, but in order to share it to the town and make it a matter of public record, we have to vote on
I don't think we should do that.
that.
That's
Well,
right.
the VLCT says that that is so, that the information has to be available. How we make it available,
Everything we talk about, though, isn't, it wouldn't be savvy to, it would harm the town.
It
Could,
is,
some of it could.
anything that goes to our private emails, and I think we all agree on this, is discoverable.
Right, I agree.
Well,
And if we are sharing information which we perceive to be privileged, we may say we don't want to release it, but the very fact that we have shared it with everybody makes it releasable.
But when it's in print,
It's on your email, it's called the.
yeah, right.
Okay,
I think
so I can have a
I didn't
communication.
say anything about email here. I said copied or shared.
Yeah, but you also said something about whether it's in writing or electronic or something else.
Any electronic
Okay, that's
piece of
email.
information that you send
All right, so
to
that's the email.
the attorney is email, that's
Right.
already,
My point is
that's
that
already.
if the chair, me or any other previous or subsequent chairs has a communication with the attorney, that uses the select board privilege. As soon as we spread it out, then that privilege with everybody, sure, but in order to communicate properly and maintain that security, we open ourselves up to some serious litigation issues.
When I bring up an issue that you don't agree with, and you call the town attorney and ask him a question, then I want to know how you asked that question.
Then that's the slant.
That's what I want.
Not a problem.
No,
You-
that's what I
don't
want.
think that is a problem.
It hasn't been yet, but you apparently received one.
No, I think that you should tell them.
Sure, I have no problem.
Well, that's what I'm asking for.
But I don't think it needs to be, every single thing needs to be floated around and
It says copied or shared. That gives enough leeway.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote on this, because we're kind of circling the drain with this one.
We do that.
I think we've all had our says, I think, we've reread it. All in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
no.
We have 3 noes, 2 ayes, does not pass. Thank you. Now, moving on to number 10, which sort of blends in with the same idea of confidentiality and privilege, the open meeting law regarding special committees. One of the issues we have with the special committee, specifically the one regarding the Muzzy Fund, is how to maintain the privacy of the individuals. That's a critical item, both to have them access the resource, as well as to ensure privacy and we don't embarrass anybody. As you, I'm sure know, because you've been reading up on this, there really isn't a locked-in, hard, fast rule provided in the law that I've had access to on how to cover this sort of committee managing private funds. As you all know, I've said from the beginning, I don't think the town ought to be doing that, but we are. So how then do we manage it? I'd like to suggest that the privacy of the individual is paramount. And I believe that should be our guiding source. And I would like to see that the select committee that we have running the Muzzy Fund operate in a fashion of an executive committee. We can't exactly call it an executive committee because we get into all kinds of details about how that works. But I think we need to protect the individual's privacy. And I think it should operate, that committee ought to operate as an executive committee in that it protects the privacy of the individuals involved. I throw that under the table.
I see that if somebody that's in dire need of some funds comes and fills out their application and follows the guidelines, and they come in front of the committee asks them questions about finances, about their health, and a lot of them, if they're in real dire need, they might not want to do that in public. They don't want to share all of this with the public. So this not being taxpayers' money, I feel that they should act in a kind of a private way. It's private funds, private way, to talk to the individual. And then, since it said that the select board authorizes to donate, give the money, they give the report, and then we make the final decision based on the recommendation. But a lot of people, I'm sure, don't want somebody sitting here from the public listening to their finances, their health issues. I certainly wouldn't. And I'm sure a lot of people, the Vermonters here, are very, very proud. There's a lot of people that may need help that won't come if they know it's an open meeting that anybody can sit down and listen.
But there is open meeting law.
I understand that,
And
but
some
I'm
of
feeling
this,
that
I
this,
agree with you for some of this. I agree with you that certain information should be held as private. But in general, committee meetings are subject to the open meeting law. And committees that aren't the select board don't have the exclusive use of executive session. And that's also from the Vermont
Say that one more
Citizen
time.
Town.
Say that again.
so you're saying that the committee
We have,
met
we
the other
have,
day.
we have things to learn about the open
Okay,
meeting.
then I think that meeting's invalid, and then we'll have to start all over again.
I don't think so.
No, don't be ridiculous.
Oh, but wait,
Don't be
let's
ridiculous.
just.
I'm saying,
You're saying that the committees ought
I'm
not be
saying-
able to operate as an executive session.
according to Vermont law,
Vermont law doesn't cover a municipality managing a private fund. That's the problem.
you've been saying all along that it's the select board's business under
We-
Vermont law to manage this fund. That's what
We
you've been saying
have
since
been
we
doing it
started.
because the other select board went ahead and chose to do it years ago. I've been saying from the very beginning, and I believe I've quoted multiple times on camera, the town ought not to be involved in managing private funds. But we are unprecedented. So now we're trying to take the law, which are accurately reflecting the open meeting law, which was not designed for non-municipal businesses, and we're trying to apply it. And because it is not, as Alexa said, public money, it is not tax money, it involves the personal sensitivities of human beings whom we are trying to ultimately help. I think, and it's a fuzzy call, but I'm willing to make the call in favor of the privacy of the individual. Because I, like you on this, want to encourage people to come and access this fund. And I don't think by making anybody who can come into a meeting sit down and listen to what's going on, I think that is abhorrent to most people, and it ought not to happen, because I think it will inhibit people who really need the funds to make applications for them. I would like to see us operate like executive. I use that phrase because it's got some rules to it. Does it fit?
Well, I think we then have to learn what the rules are of executive session,
But
so that we don't violate the open meeting law. And some of the things are uncomfortable.
Well, I guess-
To be a selectman, you sometimes take on things that you don't want to do, but it's your responsibility.
I agree with
So
that.
I don't know 100% what the open meeting law says about this. I just know that the information that I got was that select board committees are responsible to the open meeting law.
And that is
I
accurate.
don't want to violate somebody's personal confidentiality.
I think you and I agree on that.
We agree.
But the piece about open meeting laws and the committees is written for municipal committees, not for managing private funds. And
Well,
this
let's
makes
find
a
that
difference.
out. Let's find that out. We can easily find
What
that out.
other, this says special committees, you
Yep.
guys are just talking about one.
Well, that's it.
See,
What
there's
other,
no-
what other committees have we had in the past that would require an open meeting?
The garage.
The garage is an example.
Okay.
Direct
It's open to the public.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
I
if you want,
think
you want
the
this open
closest
to the
thing
public.
that might come to this is the Boynton Scholarship.
Right.
That's private funds that were donated to the select board.
That's what I was looking
Uh,
at.
yeah.
And the person brings in their request
Right.
for it.
But in that case, you have no problem making it public because it's a good thing
It's
for
a
these
good
people.
thing, right, and they're not embarrassed to ask for it because it's something that's available for.
Right. But that's an example of
Sure.
something similar.
And I think that's a good example. I think this case, because of the sensitivity, I think the onerous process of making this even quasi-public or smell like it's public will really inhibit people from coming and asking for this money. And I think that will defeat the whole purpose of doing this for people.
Right, it'll embarrass them.
I think it'll hurt, your position from the beginning has been to support the community. And I think making this an open meeting in any capacity inhibits that
We
particular.
still have to deal with the law.
Well,
We
we
still
could-
have to learn the law.
We could look into that.
I have,
That's what I'm suggesting, that we
Okay,
learn the
I'd like
law.
to make a motion.
in motion to be.
The motion for the board to move this fund to an organization such as Senior Solutions, if we can, we'd have to find out legally if we can do that to help the people in need, and that would take care of all the problems for us. And they could only use it for Jamaica residents.
I'll second that motion.
You have a discussion of opening. The question is whether or not we can do that legally.
Right,
The other question is if an agency will accept that money with the restrictions for Jamaica residents only. If somebody like neighbor, who I have talked to,
Connections.
neighborhood
You're
connections,
you're just making a suggestion that we investigate how to do this.
but she's making a motion.
making a motion.
Well, yeah, who are we giving it to? Or who?
We
are
have to find out. We
So-
gotta find out if it's legal first, and then we'll make the
So-
choice of who we wanna give it to.
Okay, so your motion is to explore
Right.
the possibility of staying within the law and the provisions of the bequest
I
to,
didn't hear her say all that.
I know, I'm trying to make it sound like it's legal.
Made it very simple.
Yeah, I
To
will
to
just,
see if the board
Chrissy
can
would like-
move this to
Chrissy-
another private
Chrissy
organization.
would like to ask a question.
I think having Alan Muzzy here, also to hear this, given that it's in his family, should be something that a decision should be made without him knowing about moving it outside of how it currently is.
And we can give it back to him?
well, yes and no. And I'll say this because I'm the elected bad guy. When a group of people, relatives say, we'd like to give this money to this group of people citizens, and they opt to use the municipal agency rather than relatives, there may be reasons for that that are unknown to us.
And I think Alan would have a hard time answering that.
And so they may, for whatever reason, have chosen us over other relatives. I don't know the reasons, I just know the facts of what happened.
Well, years ago, they did it because the overseer of the poor, and I don't know if that was an elected position.
Well, that's the other thing too.
That's
We've
when
had some
that money
changes.
was given.
And there is none of that
And
anymore.
then the overseer of the poor was the one who,
So we have a motion on the table that we're discussing, and the motion is to explore the legalities of passing the Muzzy Fund to an already established.
That wasn't the motion.
Oh, what was the
I think
motion?
we need to redo the motion.
Okay, read the motion again.
The motion was that Lexa moves to move the funds, that the board move the funds to an organization such as Senior Solutions to help people in need, and it can only be used for Jamaica residents.
okay, so I can amend my motion
Okay.
to have the board move the funds,
Investigate moving the funds, you're saying.
I can speak.
Oh.
Okay, let's see. To have the board move the funds to an organization that helps people in need, for Jamaica residents only, after or to legally find out if we can move, all right, to legally find out if we can move this money to an organization that will help, private organization. I don't like people putting words in my mouth.
So is that second stand?
Probably
Yes.
not.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Is there more discussion then?
Is there more-
I have something to say about
Go
this
ahead.
whole damn thing, all right? When it first came up to give this guy, who was in dire straits, the money, we had the power, we were charged with doing that as a select board, as it was written years and years ago. We could have just done that, and then we adopted all these guidelines. And now we're trying to dump those, and, you know, there's not much money left in there. That's, it's not gonna last that much longer. And this is just my thought. Sometimes, you know, Alan was a direct descendant of where this money came from. Alan thought the money should go to this guy. We should have just done it when we had the chance to do it without all these, we got ourselves into so much red tape now. We could have done it and have been done with it. Now that's all changed and we want to change it again. I would like to leave it alone for right now. And, you know, just if someone else wants to come before that committee that was gracious enough to form and try to sort this out and disperse the funds or make recommendations, I think we should leave it alone.
Okay. Good point, stop. Any further discussion?
I mean, when it was first given to the board, it was for women and children.
Right?
So we had to change it because this person was
It
asking
was suggested that.
for rent. But I think, I'm not a lawyer, but probably legally we had to change it to fit the times of now. Because there's no overseer of the poor, social welfare department has come in and taken care of people and stuff like that. So we had to change it so that it would fit the needs
No, I understand
now of
that.
the people. It's not that we were trying to change it around. I'm not trying to pass it off, but it seems like we've made a mountain out of a molehill with this one person, which we're trying to do it the right way, and it's just not working.
Well, that's done.
Yeah.
That
I
part's
mean, it's done,
That's
yes, that's done.
And we're talking about this committee
there's a
that's
next
in
person.
place.
Let me just something from my experience. In the 1950s, when this was done, there was a limited number of resources for these kinds of needs to be met. I think that in 2017, with the available social service programs that have developed in the ensuing 50-plus years, that 70-plus years, that the options for managing that funds are much broader and much better trained and skilled than they were in the 1950s when this was first proposed. So I think, myself, that in keeping with the intent, as I understand it, to help these people, the best way at this time would be to understand their intent to help people and give it to the people who subsequently have been trained and vetted to do that. And I would certainly support that position. Any further discussion? All in favor of Alexa's motion, say aye.
I,
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
One no. We have 4 ayes and a no. That motion passes. In concert with that motion, Lexa, would you be willing to contact the, or am I supposed to contact?
You should contact.
Contact the attorney. Do I have the support of the select board?
Yes.
We'll contact the attorney to make sure this procedure is legal. We'll start that tomorrow morning. We can discuss how to
Can
do
we
it.
use some of these funds money to pay him? How much money we
Oh.
spent trying to sort this out?
I know.
$750?
It's been an interesting.
Why don't we discuss this with the LCT first,
Why?
which is free?
And then we get 2 hours a year from them or something?
And get an opinion from them, and then if that opinion is easy,
We could do that, or I could say that we've already gotten correspondence with Paul Gillies on this topic. He has a copy of the Muzzy bequest, and he's talked about it in the past, so it's not like he's not already tuned into it. So instead of starting from scratch with another set of attorneys, at least he's got a head
but
start.
we don't have to pay the LCT.
True, but the other side is.
yeah, we actually do, because when I was working with them, it was a reduced amount compared to what we would be paying out.
If we do contractual work with them, but if
After
it's
2
all
hours.
based on request,
Yeah,
we
Get
do
2 hours free.
Yeah, but
You get 2 hours a
when you start to
year.
get into
so.
the legal stuff, then they really do start to charge.
All right, I will, if you give me your contacts at the LCT, I'll give them a call. But I anticipate that the gentleman who's already been working this project would be the
Oh, this is a little sarcasm there, but I mean,
Yeah.
is he gonna charge us for this too?
Probably, that's what he gets paid for. But the advantage is, he doesn't have to do the research, because he's already on board with this issue.
I agree with that.
So, he might, just out of pure niceness.
I have a question.
Kitty.
Has this applicant ever received any money?
Not yet.
He's going to.
I will tomorrow morning instruct the treasurer to cut a check. Actually, the check will go to his landlord.
And then, how much is left?
We've got 17,000, that's,
So you have to leave 5,000.
we have to leave 5,000, so we've got about 12,000.
Oh, there's that much?
No,
I
I
think
thought we
it's-
had 22,000.
It's 5,000 plus
17.
17.
I thought it was
That's what we
Oh, wait,
have.
We have 17 available, we have
Okay.
22, because there's a $5,000.
Okay.
I don't know. It was that
There was
much.
a 17 in there somewhere.
Somewhere
All right.
around, I thought there was a couple
16
in there.
something.
Thank you very much. Moving on. Let's, number 11, we have a discussion now about, you had said a speaker from BDCC to address the select board. We've had somebody here in the past from BDCC to addressing the select board. What is new?
Well,
Can you say what that means, please?
Yeah, Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, which is not a credit organization, so it's sending credit.
No, I know.
They're a nonprofit organization that assists business development, and they have requested of me, since I have contact with them, that they speak with us. They're reaching out to all select boards right now. They also deal with affordable housing. They deal with a lot of issues to help towns develop economically. And Laura Sevilla spoke with me and asked me if she could be invited to speak at the select board meeting.
Are they're not just for Brattleboro?
No, they're for Wyndham County.
Okay.
They're actually, they've been in business for 60 years, and I think they have agencies, Wyndham County, I think, is what the limits are, but they're connected with other agencies in the rest of Vermont.
Okay.
Remember the board charged me or asked me to go to some of their meetings?
Mhm.
I attended 3 or 4. And,
How'd it go?
well, I felt as though I really couldn't contribute much more after that. But that was that.
Mhm.
So they may have been trying to disperse money from the shutdown from Vermont Yankee too. Were they involved in that or?
I
It
don't
was
know
a
that.
different thing, but anyway, I went until I didn't think that I was helping the town any, or I could contribute anymore. Me and past clerk, Pat, we went
Got to those
together.
things, yeah. What do you think about having them come back?
I would be all right, I would be all right with listening to them. I mean, what they were talking about was a little, to be honest with you, a little above my head. So that's why I stopped going, so I would, you know, that was, I'm not saying that that would be that again. I would be glad to hear a presentation from her.
Do you have any comments? Any thoughts?
No.
No?
Think that
Lexa?
if they come, it's,
She's nice enough to come do it.
yeah.
Now, is Laura coming, or does she have the, because I know she's got
Or-
a lot of functions.
May I speak?
Sure.
I have a little bit of familiarity with this. Part of what this organization does is help regions create the comprehensive economic development strategy, which is part of getting money for community block grants from the federal government. So any voice that we have and any input that we can have in this process could only be to our benefit. So, and I think that you're absolutely right. They did actually help, after Vermont Yankee develop an economic plan for after that, but they are moving forward and working on things in the future. So it might be a good educational process for everybody to share.
Sure.
It might be Lauren, or it might be Lang, Sarah Lang, or there's one other person who contacted me, but I forgot her name. But
I'm sure
one
one
of the three of them
Yeah.
will come, one or more of the three of them.
So then, why don't we have them contact me, or do you want us to contact them for the time?
I'm sure they'll contact you if you want.
Yeah, have them give me a call, we'll figure out when.
Okay.
It'll be a select board meeting, when you think with some, perhaps a smaller agenda.
Okay.
We can do that. Okay? All right, you'll do that, thank you. Number 12 is time for public concerns, we have some public. Your hand went up first.
Can I just give a brief planning commission update?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Aside from the fact that you have a new member.
Yes, thank you very much for filling our board. We could use the help, and we're very happy to have Rebecca. Just a quick timeline. We just sent out our proposed town plan update to the surrounding towns. After we get any, if we get any feedback, there's a 30-day waiting period to give them a chance. Then on September 25th, 5 p.m., the Planning Commission will hold their hearing, our hearing on the proposed town plan. At that point, the plan goes to you, and you'll have a minimum of 30 days, and there's a maximum, it's like 120 days or something, but once again, I'm hoping it'll get in, everything will go smoothly, and it will be approved before our old town plan expires. And I did talk to you about November 13th, that if it's possible, if you guys could, that's the earliest that you are able to have your hearing, and at that time you are also able to vote to adopt it, should you choose to do that, and that would bring us in before the expiration date on the 17th.
Did you not ask me on the agenda for the 11th of September as well?
That was to have Rebecca appointed to
Okay, so I can
the
scratch that.
planning commission, so that's
Gotcha.
that's all set. And yeah, and just last night, Paul and I submitted the second requisition for grant funds, and today we found out that it was approved, so everything's on schedule. And there is a copy in the town office right now, and but it doesn't officially go to you guys until the surrounding towns have had a chance to give feedback for compatibility. But I don't know how much will change.
Right.
You can get a jump start on it if you want to.
Well, and I reiterate what I've said in the past, because of the way you guys have approached this by keeping us tuned in every step of the way, I
Yeah.
don't anticipate many difficulties.
No, the towns, my experience is that the towns do read it,
Yes.
and there really isn't that much, if any,
Yeah.
concern.
Especially since we've been all working
Yeah.
with the same
Right.
consultant. So, yeah,
But it's one of the steps that you have to take
right.
in choosing it.
One last thing before we jump to the topic. The board should be aware that our chair of the planning commission was over here last night, Sunday night, taking time away from her family to accomplish this thing because of her scheduling thing. So I again applaud your efforts and your energies in putting this together.
Thank you. You
Doing
do
a
too.
thankless job.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're gonna withdraw our thanks so you can continue in your thankless job.
If I can just have 2 more seconds on the September 4th Labor Day holiday, we're not having a planning commission meeting. We're kind of in this waiting period anyway, so we don't have anything pressing. And then our next regular meeting will resume September 18th.
Good, excellent. We'll look forward.
Thank you.
Thank you
With
very
the
much.
full
Thank
board,
you
yes.
very much.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. The next hand that went up.
So myself and a few people in town are planning a fall festival.
I'm sorry to say.
A fall festival, sorry.
Oh, it's fall. Okay.
A fall festival for Columbus Day weekend this Saturday, October 7th. So I just wanted to bring it to the board to make you aware of this before you see posters. And, it'll be along Main Street, similar to like vendors set up for Jamaica Home Day, but we figured why not boost the economy in town while there's a lot of traffic.
What was the weekend again?
October 7th, so Columbus Day weekend,
October
7th.
7th. Okay.
The event will be from 10 in the morning until 4 at night. We'll have possibly some live music, maybe set up like a North Country General, and then vendors along the street. So Lex, I wanted to reach out to you at some point and just talk about sheriff coverage, if that's needed, and just talk with you about it being a busy weekend. And if there's.
Okay, I'll check, they'd probably be here.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so we can touch base on that, and then, so we'll be looking for vendors, and then the other thing is we might be, my mom mentioned that there's some telephone poles that we could put some posters on down near the town hall, I guess, that, similar to what the chamber music festival they did, so there might be little posters on the telephone poles.
I don't know if they're allowed.
Yeah, we didn't give you permission.
Okay,
I guess if you want,
okay,
you can.
okay.
Yeah. Because
I know they can't be
other
authorized.
times they
I
can
don't
be
know,
torn
they don't
off.
like
Yeah,
stuff.
they will.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, I can rethink that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've run into problems with state.
Yeah, we have,
What were the little signs on the telephone poles?
yeah,
Apparently.
right.
Okay, okay.
But
How did the circus get away with it?
What's it?
they're leaving town. They don't think I'm back to live here.
So any questions, concerns, thoughts? Let me know.
October 7th, what is that?
It's
This
Saturday.
weekend.
Saturday.
Tourism in Vermont.
Is it?
It's the most revenue in Vermont, that's it.
Yeah, so I'd like to see as much revenue as possible and people who, vendors in the area, be able to benefit.
I know Newfane has their big.
So that's the same weekend.
Yeah, it's same.
Yeah, so we figure they can, stop in Newfane, make their way up here.
Go festival hopping.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
It's perfectly reasonable. Thank you very much.
yes.
Any other public concerns?
Yeah,
Run out of public.
I mentioned that my new assignment, I spoke with Beck Engineering, and I also spoke with Chris Haskins, and they'll provide estimates for preliminary studies about a water system.
And what are
And
your
they-
questions?
They're going to present them, to bring that to me, but I haven't yet.
Okay.
And second, I got an email, I think you may have forwarded it, I know you got it, about a revenue bond, because the state approved a $35 million revenue bond to invest in affordable and workforce housing. And they will have a meeting in Rockingham, and the email provides a phone number or an email address
was it for? Affordable what?
There's a $35 million grant that was approved by the Vermont legislature for affordable and workforce housing. It was proposed by the governor in January and was enthusiastically received by both the House and the Senate.
Could you do me a favor? So for some reason I don't recall, could you resend that to me?
Sure.
And then I'll just send it out there, or you can send it to everybody, just as easy as I can.
Okay.
I can't remember that for sure.
Sure.
Excellent. Now, this is a bond opportunity, not a bond.
This is a bond that the legislature has approved to disperse $35 million.
So it's a grant opportunity for us from that bond.
Correct.
Gotcha, okay, good. Excellent.
Especially
Anything else
for
on that?
affordable housing.
Yeah.
That's all I have on this.
Judy, you wanted to say something
Yes.
about the,
I just want to bring everyone up.
I'm sorry?
What, nothing?
Nothing.
We're cross-talking, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I just wanted to bring everyone up to date on the transfer station. Actually, 2 weeks tomorrow, we have been in a lot of disarray there, and it's all put together, thank God. We got the new motor in, and it's working great, and I wanted to especially thank our residents, because they have really done a great job and very respectful of all of the changes. We had them putting stuff in a 40 cubic container, and then now we've had them put it up on the hill and so forth, and they really have not given us a bad time about doing it, and so we really appreciate that. And I want to say a special thanks to our people who really spent a good portion of time fixing and reasserting the motor. And Chris Clark, who has spent time, and he really worked on that over the weekend and got it going. And Sparky, the electrician, he was the one who took it out, the old one, so that I could take it over to Keene for them to look at it. And a special thanks to Dan Miller, who is our attendant up there. He has had to deal with telling the public which dumpster is taking the trash now, and switching them around and things like that. And we've also, at the end, we're entertaining the bears quite nicely, and he would have to go up the hillside and pick up all of the garbage that they were taking out of the open dumpster that was going. And so he has worked very, very hard and has, kept his good sense of humor around it, and I really appreciate that. So we're back in business. We have a brand new motor, and hopefully things are going to run a little bit more smoothly, and it feels like relief.
In case someone forgets, thank you for your efforts in that.
Oh.
Yeah, because you've been honchoing this thing for a long time.
So, but it's done.
So we'll name it the Judy's Bear Sanctuary.
Yeah, I wonder if the cameras, do the cameras run up there?
Oh, yeah,
Bears?
still.
They film any of the bears?
I imagine they are filmed, yeah. But, it was just a heyday for them when
Sure.
we were just using the open-ended one where they could just come down that nice trail. They have a trail there, I don't know if you know where it is. And they just went across the road and right into the dumpster. So,
You don't want them to work too hard.
If they were more efficient, we wouldn't have to tow it away.
I know.
We are running a town alongside, it is now 8:45. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we will be adjourned at 8:45. Thank you very much.